Welcome back to another YouTube Tuesday. My name is Derek, and today we're going to be going over a channel that I think deserves a follow. So let's get into the video. Today we're going to be looking at the YouTube channel Mr. Phone Doctor, run by Javi Guzman, and he's been uploading videos for quite some time. He has over 70,000 subscribers and has uploaded over 250 videos. The combined total of the views on his videos is close to 20 million views. Today we're going to be taking a look at a video that he made covering the topic of glass only on an iPad, to see how difficult it is, to see if it's something you want to get into. So let's watch it together.
Hey, what's up? Don't click away. Today I'm going to show you how we repair a cracked screen on an iPad Air 3 or an iPad Pro 10.5. I'm Javi Guzman with MrPhoneDoctor.com, and thank you all very much for tuning in and checking out this episode. If you guys need a repair on an iPad like this one here or any other device, please visit us at www.MrPhoneDoctor.com. and make sure to visit us on our social media platforms found below. So this is the iPad Air 3 that we're going to be working on today, and just some information for you guys to know is it does use the same glass and digitizer as the iPad Pro 10.5 inch. So if you have either of those, you can go ahead and use it for this device or vice versa. Now just keep in mind the only different part is going to be the LCD. The LCDs are not interchangeable. Let's go ahead and begin. We do want to first off make sure that the digitizer is fully working. This will decide and let us know that we can do the glass only replacement. If for some odd reason your digitizer went out, you will need to replace it. They do make a part which is the glass and the digitizer layered together for you to laminate onto the LCD. We are going to be using this glass only because this digitizer is good. So let's go ahead.
A lot of refurbishers go straight for the digitizer instead of just the glass because the digitizer on these models is somewhat susceptible to damage. It's not very rigid. It's fairly flexible actually, and if a glass shard gets dragged under it through the refurbishing process, it will create touch issues, and it can also create a visual defect that you'll see after laminating. So a lot of refurbishers just go straight for replacing the digitizer instead of trying to separate it from the glass.
And then get into the settings where you want to go into the accessibility, which is here. You're going to go to touch and you're going to turn on the assistive touch. And this pretty much just creates a little home icon on here. And what we like to do is we just drag this icon on here, make sure there's no dead zones, and this will confirm that the digitizer is fully working. We do this for all our iPads. We also do it for the iPhones as well. So any iPhone that comes in, we just turn the accessibility on and we have access to that. Now that we confirm that the digitizer is fully working, we can go ahead and move forward and begin applying heat to the iPad. And to do so, we use a heating plate temperatured at 85 degrees Celsius. Now that we have the iPad up to temperature, we can go ahead and begin by separating all this broken back glass from the frame that it's held onto. Now keep in mind, you do want to be very, very careful whenever you go up on top here because of all these little shards. You don't want any of these little shards to go in and damage the LCD.
Around the 90 degrees Celsius mark, over 10 minutes, is definitely going to cause a warpage in the backlight. So just keep in mind, the longer you leave an iPad on a heat plate, the higher chances you have of having issues with the backlight. It'll be a visual defect, but it's an annoying one to look at for sure.
All right, I got the tweezers, so I'm going to just go ahead and gently remove any broken shards. These are the culprits of damage, so just carefully remove all these guys. And for those of you guys out there wondering, there is different ways of doing this. I'm doing a glass refurbishing on here. You can buy the LCD panels with the glass already installed, but keep in mind if the quality on those is not as good as a original Apple LCD. So a lot of sellers out there, they're selling these LCDs with the glass on them and they're aftermarket. So just be very careful when you are purchasing these. Keep that in mind. A good OEM original screen is going to run you probably about 200 bucks. And there we have it. We have this LCD glass digitizer removed.
It's totally acceptable to try to disconnect power at this point. Really, the main time when power is needing to be disconnected and the board to properly drain the power is when you go to connect the display back up, because the connector doesn't always connect perfectly up to it. You have to find that sweet spot where the connector wants to actually click in. You kind of rub the connector over itself. If you've got power connected and a data line crosses with the ground plane, you can cause shortings in the backlight, in the touch, blow the diodes. Like, there's a bunch of things that can go wrong if you have the battery connected. When you go to connect it, when you're going to disconnect it, you can pretty much get around disconnecting the battery right here at the beginning. You can disconnect the display with the battery connected. You just definitely shouldn't connect the display when the battery is connected, so make sure you don't forget that step.
And we're going to go ahead and remove these. So I removed both of these screws here, this one and this one. Go ahead and remove that. You can lift up the digitizer. These are the digitizer flexes, and we have the LCDs, which are tight. And there we have it. This is our LCD display with the digitizer. So you can see here, we are going to be replacing, which one is the Digi? I believe we're gonna keep all of these intact. We're only gonna need to remove this home button, and everything else can stay intact because the digitizer is gonna be attached to the LCD. So this one home button is gonna be out of here. But while this is nice and toasty, I'm gonna set this aside. We're gonna test it, make sure that everything's fully working, because we don't wanna work on it without us knowing. We don't wanna waste time. But I'm gonna give this a nice detailed clean since it's still nice and toasty. So this is when it takes a lot of patience, because you wanna be very, very detailed and get all of this grimy glue off. I'm gonna go ahead and use our little spindle tool, because that works best. Works good to get the majority of the buildup. Once you get all the major gunk on here.
I love these types of tools for cleaning the borders, as I've shown in plenty of videos. However, he had the display off. You might as well have just turned it on to test it before disconnecting it. That would have saved him a step. But one of the things he should definitely be doing is carefully removing any of the small shards that he can remove around the border of this before going at it with the wire to cut it off. And given that he was questioning which flex cable was the digitizer, I wonder if he has done this model before.
Major gunk on here. We can go ahead and give it a detailed clean with the alcohol. All right, so we got the major gunk of this off. I'm gonna go through and give it one final clean using our cleaning rag and some ISO.
Isopropyl alcohol is good for cleaning. Something better though, something that cleans much quicker. You have to be a little more careful with it, but it's super, super good at cutting through the grime, much better than ISO is acetone. You just have to be careful not to mess with any of the plastic parts inside the iPad, because a lot of the plastic parts will basically melt when acetone touches them. But it's so nice for cleaning the digitizer, the glass, the frames. It's such a good chemical to work with. You just have to be kind of careful with it.
Test the LCD that we removed, make sure everything's fully working, and then we can strip it. I went ahead and plugged in the iPad Air 3 so you could see that everything is still working. We can go ahead and power off the iPad. Now that we confirm the iPad Air 3 screen is fully functional, I'm gonna go ahead and tape this glass, and then we'll set it on our heating plate so we can begin removing the broken glass. Taping this is pretty straightforward. You really want to only focus on where the major cracks are at. If you have any pieces like this that are not cracked, then there's no need to put any tape because it's going to stay intact with the LCD. And I'm just using a standard packing tape. Sometimes we use capstan tape, but I couldn't find any, and this is right next to me, so I'm going to continue with what I have here.
Tech tip here. The best tape to use if you're going to use any type of packing tape is what's called long lasting. It's a 3M packaging tape. It has this ability to withstand temperature. So you'll see there's a little thermometer on it, but this long lasting tape will withstand the heat of these heat plates and won't lose its stick. In fact, I have some right here. It's a Scotch 3M long lasting. Any of the other Scotch packaging tapes, just the adhesive doesn't cut it. And I haven't found a single packaging tape out there. The heavy duty ones, none of them work. It's only this one that can withstand the temperatures that I like to subject these displays to for refurbishing purposes.
I couldn't find any, and this is right next to me, so I'm going to continue with what I have here. And then you want to make sure when you tape this, you get a nice, smooth grab. You don't want any bubbles or anything like that. Bubbles are going to cause issues whenever you have it on the heating plate. It pretty much keeps the LCD from sitting flush. So no bubbles. Alright, so here you can see we have wrapped it. And I used the wrong term. Bubbles are fine, it's wrinkles, okay? You can see I did get a lot of bubbles on here, but that's fine, it's gonna sit. It's usually when the tape gets wrinkled up and it's crinkled, that's when it won't sit. So let's go ahead and set this up on our plate. I'm gonna go ahead and begin removing the home button. You can see how the home button has a little adhesive here covering the actual flex cable. And I'm not sure if there's any adhesive on here or not, but I'm gonna just get my card on here. Yep, there was some adhesive, so there we go. We got that removed. And then we're gonna have to cut the glue. These are held down with some kind of cold press or rubber cement glue. I'm gonna go through and just carefully remove these. But as I mentioned earlier, you wanna be very careful not to damage the home button. So here we go. Here is the home button. I'm gonna observe here, this is the first iPad I've done, so I just wanna make sure that whenever we do remove the digital.
Alright, so it's his first iPad. One of the things that I've noticed is good techs will be able to tackle basically any repair, even if it's their first one. So given that he knows what he's doing with regards to refurbishing phones, this is his first iPad, he'll probably be successful. Let's see how it goes from here.
Digitizer, I'm sorry, the glass. Make sure everything's done properly and we don't damage anything. Because this flex cable here, it looks like this one is the digitizer flex, and then these top ones are your LCD. Want to make sure everything's nice and loose, so whenever we come through with our line, there's less risk of us tearing the digitizer and us having to replace it. Alright, so I'm going to be using a 0.06 line. For those of you out there that are saying, why don't you use 0.04, 0.03, 0.05? Well, you know what? I prefer 0.06 because since we're going to be cutting a larger surface of Oka, it gets really, really tight. So this one's going to be less likely to break. So
it is less likely to break. 0.08, 0.06, you can get away with those. The only issue is you have the tendency to drag shards of glass with that thickness. With the right technique, you won't. There's a specific way that you would want to pull to make sure that you're not dragging shards of glass under from the edge. They almost always just come from an edge. There's never really shards of glass in somewhere randomly inside the or on top of the digitizer from the glass. It's almost always dragged in from an edge. You could go down to like a 0.035. That's my preferred one, but it does break a lot, or it breaks more often, but with the right technique, going with a thinner wire tends to be better for the device. So 0.06 is okay. You just have to have your technique down to use a thicker wire like that.
Be less likely to break. So if you guys haven't tried it and you guys are breaking a lot of line, give it a shot. It works well. Yeah, I believe that's it. So there's several different layers on there, and I'm almost certain I'm on the right one. But I'm gonna always double check, confirm. All right, so we are safe to go through. I'm gonna go ahead and go through with my line right under that digitizer layer.
It looks like in the corner there, if you look carefully, he's actually got a piece of plastic that he's already slid under the digitizer. This helps him get that corner started so he doesn't automatically start cutting into the digitizer. He gets right under it with the wire as he goes in. So that's a good trick for basically any time you have access to the edge of a digitizer.
My line right under that digitizer layer. So I'm gonna go ahead and just push. You always want to push this way. You never want to lift in case there's any kind of adhesive still on here. By pushing this way, push, push, push. Once you push, you can lift up. See that? So this is your iPad. All this gold is your digitizer.
Right there, you can actually see that zigzag that goes back and forth from kind of where the home button is up to the mid left part. That zigzag's definitely a scratch in the digitizer. It means he dragged a shard of glass as he was cutting from probably that edge where there was really shattered under the digitizer, mainly because of the thickness of the wire. That's not coming out. I can tell from my experience, that's not coming out. Other little scratches, nothing that I can see here besides that would be visible when it comes time to use an OCA. Now, one thing that could potentially make it less visible when he goes to laminate it would be to use like a Loca, but that's really not practical because of the backlight. You're risking backlight seepage with any type of liquid, but the Loca would fill in those scratches. The only issue is the touch affected in that corner, because a cut like that can kill the touch. And if I had seen this right away, the first thing that I would be doing is, so I'd clean off the adhesive so I get a good stick, or at least a good suction on the digitizer, but I would be cutting the digitizer off and replacing the digitizer right away, because this is definitely going to be visible. So let's see what he decides to do, and let's see what he decides to do.
And you can see how these flexes down here, these flexes overlap and they run over right here on the top. So those are your digitizer flexes. But overall, I think that was very, very simple. And I didn't bust the line, guys. See, 0.06 for those of you guys out there trying to use that thin line. I love that 06 on these larger screens. I'm going to want to test this, of course, make sure that the digitizer functions are still working. Let's go ahead and test this screen. Make sure that the digitizer is fully working. I went ahead and plugged everything in, turned it on. And I just want you guys to see here how the touch is fully responsive still. So glass removal was a success. We didn't have any issues on losing the touch on the digitizer. So we can go ahead and move forward and remove the Oka from the LCD panel. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and put it on the heating plate once again at 85 Celsius. Now this one does take a couple minutes to heat up. Since it is the bare LCD, it's going to heat up a lot quicker than the iPad. And I did see a couple little squigglies come in from the glass. You can see right here. So we may have a couple.
I would be definitely lowering the temperature a little bit at this point, because you're going straight heat plate to backlight here. That's like asking for warpage in the backlight. But at least he's seeing the scratch mark, and let's see what he says. Let's see what he says about it.
I have a couple hairlines that occurred from the shards, which I mentioned previously. Now, the good thing is with any kind of hairlines like this, most times the Oka is going to go ahead and fill those in, so don't worry too much. Unless they're very deep, then you may have issues with the Oka not hiding those. But in this case, they look very, very minimal, so we should be okay. I'm going to begin removing the OCA, and we're going to use the spindle tool.
He definitely doesn't have a lot of the OCA left behind. It looks like 80% or so of it stayed on the glass side, which is actually really nice. That being said, the more OCA that's left on the display, the less likely the wire had a chance to make contact with the digitizer, therefore the less scratches you'll have in it. And the same goes if you're removing the digitizer from the display itself. The more adhesive that's left on the LCD versus on the digitizer layer, the less likely the wire had contact, less scratches, better finished product. So it's like the pros and cons of it. Removing a lot of the OCA is you might scratch it, but the cleanup is faster. So yeah, but it's not something you can really force. It's kind of the luck of the draw whether or not you get more adhesive on the glass or on the digitizer. So, but everything so far is pretty good.
All right, first step is done. We have removed all the large clumps of the Oka. You can see this little ball, a wad. Wasn't a lot, which is nice. We are now going to begin the detail. And to do that, we're going to use our magic eraser and some ISO 99. And I generally like to just squirt some in the middle and then just work my way out with this. Now you want to be very careful not to get any on the edges, because if you do get on the edges, it's going to seep under and get into the backlight. So very, very careful when you're doing this, not to use that much liquid on here. All right. So we went ahead and cleaned off all the OCA. So let's go ahead and step back into the lab and we'll begin the lamination on this LCD. Welcome back to the lab. So we're here for our final two steps, which is going to be to laminate our glass to our OCA. And to do so, we are going to be using our universal iPad mold. So we're going to go ahead and begin by first aligning our glass, and we're going to...
So in this case, having the ability to install your own OCA is nifty, but it's so much easier just to buy the pre-installed 2-in-1 glass and OCA, or even just a whole digitizer. Just one more step where you could introduce dust specks, bubbles, fingerprint streaks, things like that. So it's cool to have the ability to do it, but the cost difference is almost negligible. So let's see how he installs his own OCA.
Lining our glass, and we're going to use our little black rubber pads. This is going to help adhere the OCA sheet. And this mold is pretty straightforward. You just want to make sure that you align the OCA sheet centerly. Once we have that, we can go ahead and adhere the OCA. Let's go ahead and press this down. And by pressing down, this will grab the OCA sheet up on top like so. And that gives you a perfect alignment. So we can remove these black grommets. I'm going to start off by revealing our glass first. Go. Then we can reveal our OCA sheet here. Alright, so let's carefully line this on here. Put this in our laminator. And we have a preset set already on this.
Definitely want to be in a clean room environment. I guess he calls his the lab. You definitely want to not have a lot of dust, because when you pull off the protectors to either the glass or the OCA, it creates a lot of static on that surface. And so anything that is in the area, whether it's in the air or on the table or on the glass side or the digitizer edge, wherever it is, it's going to leach onto the OCA and you won't be able to clean it off. You'd have to replace it. So you want to be in a clean environment, especially with a screen this large.
Already on this for OCA, so I'm going to go ahead and just hit the OCA lamination. The PSI on this is going to be 0.6, temperature 70, vacuum time 100, and the press time is 150 seconds, in case you guys are wondering. So we are going to need to align this, and I don't really like manually aligning these, okay? So what I like to do is I like to use the iPad as a template.
That'll work using the iPad as a template. It's basically its own mold, but if you do have access to the actual molds that will align the glass and the display perfectly, they're a lot better. They tend to come with little spring-loaded pins that allow you to install the glass on top without it making contact, so that you can press it down firmly in the right spot and not have to have the display kind of free-floating inside of the iPad, potentially being slightly misaligned when you go to install the glass on the frame. It's just a little, this is better than doing it typically by eye, but it's not 100% perfect, but it'll work. So let's see how it goes for him.
So what we do is we just set this in here. There's a lot of alignment molds out there on the market, but I've heard they're junk, so this is why I prefer to do this way. So that's, so you just set it in.
Now this video is a couple years old, so by, nowadays the molds are fantastic.
Here like so. Once you have it in here, make sure everything's lined up where the LCD is going to be sitting once we apply the glass. All right, let's go ahead and reveal our iPad glass to Oka. All right, so here is our Oka to glass lamination. Oh, the Oka was perfect. No bubbles whatsoever. Okay, so we can move forward with our final lamination. But it is going to be, let me go ahead and explain to you guys, it's going to be 70 degrees Celsius, the vacuum's 100, press time 25, and the PSI is going to be 0.2. And this is when we use our little suction cup. This is going to help us align everything. Oh, make sure you get a nice strong hold on there, because we're going to need to use this to align over our iPad here. Let's go ahead and reveal the OCA, and we're going to begin with the top. So we're going to fit this in, like so. Make sure it's fit in, and we can just go ahead and pull up. See that? We got a nice hold, and it removed itself from the iPad. All right, let's go ahead and set her in, and we're gonna go ahead and run it at the presets that I mentioned. All right, laminating has finished. Let's go ahead and reveal. Very, very nice. And we are gonna go ahead and move forward and test the tablet, make sure everything's fully working. See that? The touch and everything responds perfectly. Only downside is I do see that those little hairline scratches did not come out, so we are definitely going to have to consider those and let the customer know on those. I'm not sure if you guys can see them, but that long little tail where the glass ran down did show up. So there's going to be several different options that we can do here. We'll go ahead and let the customer know, let them know about this issue, and we can offer them some kind of a discount on this repair. Or if they're not satisfied with that, we'll go ahead and
it's kind of his fault. I mean, shards are kind of hard to see, and it's kind of hard to feel because of like the OCAs when you're carrying a shard with the wire. But it's kind of his fault, so I would expect him to give the customer a discount or even just offer to replace the digitizer. The cost differential between a glass and just a digitizer isn't crazy. Obviously, the cost between a LCD and just a digitizer only or the glass only is substantial. So it's a good thing he hasn't broken the display, but he may end up needing to refurbish this one again. So let's see.
We'll go ahead and let the customer know, let them know about this issue, and we can offer them some kind of a discount on this repair. Or if they're not satisfied with that, what we'll go ahead and do is we'll just go ahead and replace the digitizer. If I do replace the digitizer, I'll go ahead and make another video so I can show you guys the process on doing the digitizer replacement. But since this was my first iPad, normally hairline scratches like this do disappear. This is the first iPad I've done, so I wasn't familiar with how thick that digitizer, how hard that digitizer layer is, and obviously it does cause some effect on this. So going forward, I will remember that and make sure to just replace the digitizer in the future. As I did mention, I am not going to do the assembly on this. For you guys out there that do want to do the assembly, just go ahead and reassemble everything going backwards, following my steps that I did. Make sure you guys re-adhere the home button and put any kind of sensors up here that hold the camera into place. But other than that, that's going to be pretty much it. I really hope you guys enjoyed my video. If you guys did, make sure you guys subscribe, hit that like, and leave your comments down below. Let me know what you do want to see. Now, if there's something that you guys did learn from this video, always be transparent with your customers. Being honest and upfront with your customers is always the best. We'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.
So the end product was pretty much there. That's on point for how it's supposed to go. At least there were a couple of issues. The scratch in the digitizer, obviously. And one of the things that I would recommend if you're going to get into doing this is to try out more than just isopropyl alcohol when cleaning. I'm telling you, the difference between cleaning with acetone versus isopropyl alcohol is huge. Acetone evaporates 10 times faster, is less prone to leave streaking fingerprints. It does dry out your fingers a little bit more if you're not wearing gloves, but the chances that acetone leaches off of the wipe and somehow makes its way to the backlight versus alcohol, which doesn't evaporate as quickly. I mean, it evaporates fairly quickly compared to, say, water or something, but it definitely doesn't evaporate as quickly as acetone. And acetone just leaves a streak-free, smudge-free, fingerprint-free. Like, it's phenomenal. So if you are refurbishing and you haven't yet tried acetone, I highly recommend it. Go to Walmart, pick up a bottle. You find the little liter bottles for a couple bucks. 100% pure acetone next to like the nail polish remover in the beauty section, or you can go to a beauty salon store and buy a gallon for 20 bucks or something. But it goes a long way. It's really good. There are other cleaning solutions out there as well for cleaning off OCA, like an 8333 or OCA remover, but acetone is my preferred one. So if there's a channel out there that you'd recommend we take a look at, leave it in the comments below. And if you have something to add to this video, let's start up a conversation down below. Thanks a ton for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.